thanks very much for the opportunity to be with you today. I'll be talking about Open Invention Network and some of the changes occurring in the open source community, which are driving the development of the cross-license community that OIN manages. Every electronic touch that we have today is really enabled by Linux, whether it's branded as such or not. Pretty much every Google search, the platforms that are being developed for self-driving vehicles, Chromebooks, Android devices, the cloud, no matter who manages it, runs on Linux and open source code. Stock exchanges around the world, commodities exchanges, social networking, pretty much every touch that we have is enabled by Linux and open source. This transition is driven by the larger movement toward software centricity in products, building more intelligence, more programmability into devices to allow them to perform better and be upgraded more frequently. And so the modality of open source is really where the power comes from. It's the whole idea that 1 + 1 + 1 doesn't equal 3, it equals 6 or 10 or 20. When we bring smart people together, a diverse group of people from around the world to be able to solve problems in software and develop elegant code. And what that results in is higher levels of innovation. The process through which this occurs, which this collaborative development occurs, is managed by organizations like the Linux Foundation and others that are really ushering in this notion of project-based innovation. Automotive companies coming together to form automotive-grade Linux and develop the digital DNA of vehicles in the future. Carriers getting together to form projects like OPNFV and ONAP to be able to facilitate smarter, more efficient service delivery. Hyperledger project developing blockchain code to support more secure and protected ledgering technology diffusion in banking, financial services, and elsewhere. While this activity has gone on and we've kind of moved toward very explicitly toward the idea of co-opetition, where we cooperate to compete more effectively, intellectual property has changed to some degree. It's not that it's become less relevant, it's just become more focused and more targeted on where differentiation can be found, and often that's higher in the stack. Lower in the stack, there's a lot of collaborative development in software development, and then adoption occurs, and individual companies make choices around that where the differentiation is going to occur, and files patents there, and that's tends to be where this kind of duality is maintained effectively. And so recognizing that this shift has occurred has been very important to companies for their intellectual property strategies. It was in 2005 when IBM, Red Hat, SUSE, NEC, Sony, and Philips got together, later joined by Google and Toyota, to architect a platform that would evolve with the open source community so that protections could be provided and collaborative development could be sustained. There are over 3,300 companies in the OIN community right now, from very small companies to some of the largest patent holding companies in the world. They own together over 3 million patents and applications. And OIN, in addition, has spent $100 million buying, curating a portfolio, and inventing and curating a portfolio of over 1,300 patents and applications. The OIN Linux system, which is developed in collaboration with the broader community, includes over 2,800 packages and applications, which provide the scope of the cross-license that companies are bound to participate in when they become involved in OIN. And essentially, all these companies from all these sectors are actively participating in open source, and they've all become participants in the OIN community, looking for patent risk mitigation associated with their open source decisions. Essentially, there are a handful of reasons why people join OIN. Patent risk mitigation, as I described. If you're going to adopt code from a project, Most projects now are done under permissive licenses, which offer very little patent protection. As a result, OIN recognizes the projects that are important, protects the code in those projects, and companies that are in those projects start to become more actively participating in patent non-aggression through the OIN cross-license. There's also a greater comfort with code adoption. That's one of the things that comes from OIN participation, is you can feel comfortable adopting code from an open source project without fear of litigation risk. No monetary cost. This is a very unique element of OIN, and why there's really no analog in the history of technology, cross licenses and patent pools to what OIN does and the service it provides. OIN focuses on open source and enabling this modality that is incredibly powerful and unlocks a tremendous amount of innovation through the collaborative activities of individuals and companies from around the world. What OIN asks in return, instead of capital, is for companies to agree to cross-license each other so that patents that they own that read on Linux system functionality will not be used for litigation and are cross-licensed to all other members of the community. In addition, OIN provides access to the $100 million worth of patents and applications it's developed on a royalty-free basis. Many of those patents have been developed around open source projects to provide clearance in front of open source projects and provide additional protections beyond the cross-license. OIN also provides defensive support for entities that are at risk or in litigation from operating companies and PAEs that are looking to sue on patents that read on core Linux functionality. We also work with unified patents, and we file pre-issuance submissions on our own to be able to ensure that we're able to further limit risk associated with prospective patent grants and with existing patents, and are on a regular basis providing prior art to companies that are again, at risk or in litigation from companies that are looking to use patents to be able to slow or stall the progress of Linux. Over time, OIN has really become a litmus test of open source authenticity. I think nowhere is that more clear than in the example of Microsoft. 20 months ago, they became a participant in the OIN community as a licensee, recognizing the importance of maintaining the duality of their proprietary platforms, but also of their increasing need to interoperate and work with open source code in their products. And so thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you today. It's been my pleasure. And if there are any questions, please direct them to my team at info@openinventionnetwork.com. Look forward to maintaining a dialogue and to welcoming you all into the OIN community.